Hello there. One thing I will never understand about the Teen Wolf fandom is the obsession in some corners to make Stiles supernatural. In my mind, the character simply won't work if he's not human. But fans are going to do what they do in their own headcanon, and more power to them. But one aspect of the supernatural Stiles movement that does brush up against canon is that Stiles somehow maintains some residual power from his time sharing a body with the Nogitsune. This is impossible for reasons I'll explain, but the idea still persists. So today we're looking at the side effects of possession in the Teen Wolf universe and how Stiles and Mason had very similar experiences, but very different reactions. If you enjoy these weekly field trips back to Beacon Hills, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so YouTube will ring you whenever I post new material. In case it's been a while, the Nogitsune was a 1,000-year-old trickster spirit summoned by Nishiko Yukimura during World War II to take vengeance on soldiers who had withheld life-saving medicine from and then opened fire on prisoners at an American concentration camp near Beacon Hills. That was a mouthful. The Nogitsune arrived and killed almost everybody, including the prisoners. Nishiko and Satomi managed to get it out of the body it was in and then trapped it in the form of a housefly in a glass jar that Nishiko then buried in the roots of the Nematon, which is a magic tree in Beacon Hills Preserve. Like 70 years later, Scott, Stiles, and Allison re-energized the magic stump during a storm that violently shook and collapsed the ground around the site. This apparently freed the Nogitsune, who began stalking Stiles in his dreams because the whole thing with the re-energizing the Nematon left him open to psychic attack. While the Nogitsune had limited control over Stiles' movements, he was blacking out and running around causing damage and hurting people.
Get down!
Deaton managed to put Nogitsune to sleep, but that was temporary, and then Stiles finally gave in to it fully in order to save Malia from a drill-happy patient at Icon House.
Bad idea.
Once fully in control, the Nogitsune stole one of Nishiko's tails, released dozens of its flies to control the werewolves as a series of distractions, and then collapsed in a parking lot where Lydia found him. After Scott and Lydia traveled into his brain and woke Stiles up, the Nogitsune regurgitated a pile of bandages onto the floor at the McCall house. And thinking the body that emerged from the bandages was the Nogitsune, Scott tackled it. In the confusion, the real Nogitsune kidnapped Lydia and escaped, which had been its plan all along. Now at this point in the story, the Nogitsune is completely out of Stiles' body. I'll repeat that in a slightly different way. Stiles and the Nogitsune are two totally separate beings now. There are two schools of thought on how this happened. The bandage vomit and the rising from the floor was all an elaborate illusion put on by the Nogitsune in order to create confusion and to distract while it made a new body for itself on the couch. Don't forget, illusion is a power the Nogitsune has. The other option is that this guy crawling out of the floor really is Stiles in a brand new body. Whichever one you choose to believe, Stiles is completely Nogitsune free from this point on. But he keeps getting weaker because they're connected. Yes, the Nogitsune is still using Stiles' life force to maintain the body it created. It has to do this because it's just a spirit and it's got no body of its own. Even though it managed to make one, it still has to steal the energy from somewhere in order to keep that body going. But let's be clear, everything that is the Nogitsune, every ounce of power it has is in that new body. So when Scott bites the new body and destroys it, every ounce of Nogitsune is reduced back into a housefly, which they then trap in the box. the magic box made from the magic tree stump, or the magic tree, whatever. But just because the Nogitsune is all gone from Stiles doesn't mean he's just suddenly fine and dandy. While physically free of the Nogitsune, he retains all the memories of what he did while possessed.
I remember everything I did, Scott. I remember pushing that sword into you. I remember twisting it.
This knowledge weighs on him, and while the writers kept him pretty busy for the first few episodes of season 4, they still worked his lingering trauma into the story.
I remember everything I did, and the worst part is I remember liking it. Because I felt powerful.
You can see numerous other instances where the writers and Dylan O'Brien changed the Stiles character based on this trauma. His whole reaction after Donovan's fall in season 5 is a good example. Stiles knows there's no Nogitsune inside him to blame for this. It's all him, and it's all the more horrifying because it's all him. I personally believe that the theory of Void Stiles still somehow lurking inside lessens the genuine growth and any future trauma the character will suffer going forward.
Why don't you tell me your name?
And because television writers are never going to give up the opportunity to recycle a good plot, by the end of season 5, we saw Possession 2.0, with Liam's friend Mason taken over by a big bad. In case it's been a while, the Dread Doctors were taking teenagers and mixing their DNA with supernaturals to try to resurrect Sebastian Vallet and the Beast of Gévaudan. The head Dread was in love with Sebastian and spent like 200 years mixing and matching supernatural stuff until he finally hit the jackpot with sweet, innocent Mason. Mason then became the host for Sebastian and the Beast and went around tearing shit up and causing general mayhem and destruction. But in this instance, instead of giving Mason and actor Kylan Rambo the opportunity to grow from this lasting trauma, while at the same time giving the audience a chance to develop a deeper understanding and sympathy for the character, the writers just made Mason forget. I asked Jeff Davis about it in hopes of getting some insight, but he said Mason suffered no side effects at all. This actually makes sense with the plot. All the Chimera forget themselves during the process. That fact we learned from the formerly winged wonder Zach.
First, you forget. You don't know who you are or what you're doing. Then you get violent.
And in the case of the Beast, remembering his identity was a key plot point, so it kind of makes sense that Mason's memory would be affected. But I expected them to address it in some small way, at least. I mean, after everything they put Stiles through with his possession, you'd think there would be something. But no, when Mason got back for season 6, he just jumped right into the mystery of the wonky compass and said nothing whatsoever about his time possessed by one of history's most notorious serial killers. Thanks for watching. Now go forth and like and comment and maybe subscribe. I'll see you next time we go back to Beacon Hills.